بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما. We are on page 72 inshaAllah, chapter 12. Chapter 12, Babu La Yastaghfiru li Abihi al-Mushrik. Imam Bukhari brings chapter 12 and he titles chapter 12 that La Yastaghfiru li Abihi al-Mushrik, that one should not seek forgiveness for one's polytheist father. If one's father is a mushrik, he should not seek forgiveness for this person. In this chapter, Imam Bukhari only brings one hadith. There's only one hadith in this whole chapter. And in this hadith, basically this hadith is tafsir, explanation of two ayat, two verses. And in this hadith, Imam Bukhari, Ibn Abbas, rahimahullah ta'ala, radiyallahu ta'ala an, he's explaining to us the relationship between two ayat. So we'll read the riwayah, we'll read the hadith, and then we'll explain what the hadith is discussing. حدثنا إسحاق قال أخبرنا علي بن الحسين قال حدثني أبي عن يزيد النحوي عن إكرمة عن ابن عباس في قوله عز وجل إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تكن لهما أف إلى قوله كما ربياني صغيرا نسختها الآية التي في البراءة ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا أولي قربى الآية. Now, in this hadith, what we need to understand is what's going on in this hadith. In this hadith, Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala an, he first recites one verse of the Quran from Surah Isra. And this is a verse of the Quran that we discussed before in our previous sessions. The ayah is in Surah Isra where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about how someone should make a dua for their parents. If you remember the verse, وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا, and say, "Oh my Lord, have mercy upon them as they raised me through my youth." This is ayah in Surah Isra. Now, Ibn Abbas is telling us in this hadith that this verse was abrogated by another verse of the Quran. Now, in order to understand, we have to look at the second verse, and then we're going to have to understand what is abrogation in Islam. So this will be a little bit more academic. For those who are in our classes, we discuss some of this. For some of us, it may be the first time hearing it, but it's important to discuss what abrogation is. The second verse, which Imam Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu is saying abrogated the first verse, was an ayah in Surah Bara'ah. مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, that is, it does not suit the Prophet, it does not befit the Prophet, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and those who believe, أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا, that they should ask and seek forgiveness for mushriks, those who are polytheists, who worship more than one God. وَلَوْ كَانُوا, even if it is their close relatives, after it has become apparent to them that they are of the people of hellfire. Now, we need to understand the sha'n al-nuzul. We need to understand why was this second verse revealed. Well, we need to look back at the seerah and look at the life of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of the people that took care of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the most and protected him from the persecution of the non-Muslims at that time was none other than his uncle, Abu Talib. He cared for him as his own son. And he stood up for him and protected him from all the torments and troubles that the mushrikeen were attempting to give Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As Abu Talib, he got close to death. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to his uncle and he began to talk to him and talk to him about accepting Islam. And he keeps talking to him and telling him, قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, say La ilaha illallah, I will intercede for you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Say La ilaha illallah, say La ilaha illallah. And now you have to imagine that Abu Talib is like his father. You have to understand the relationship. And over again, what is he saying? He's saying, قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, say La ilaha illallah. But in the same room, on the other side of Abu Talib, is Abu Lahab, is Abu Jahl, is Abu Jahl, and Ibn Umayyah. Two of the strongest of the kuffar that were utterly against Islam at that time. And every time Rasulullah ﷺ was saying to Abu Talib that say La ilaha illallah, say La ilaha illallah, Abu Jahl would look at him and say, are you going to turn away from the religion of your forefathers? Are you going to turn away from the religion of your forefathers? And then Rasulullah ﷺ keeps saying to him, say La ilaha illallah, say La ilaha illallah, say La ilaha illallah. And at the same time, what's happening? Abu Jahl. What is he saying? Are you going to turn away from your forefathers? Are you going to turn away from your forefathers? So the last thing that Abu Talib said as he was leaving the world was, Ala millati Abdul Muttalib, that I am on the religion of my forefathers. And he told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before he died, if it wasn't lawla an ta'ayyarani Quraysh, if it wasn't that the Quraysh would find fault in me, make fun of me, then I would say this word for you, but I can't say it. In another riwayat, he says, if it wasn't for the fact that they said that I was scared of death, I would have said it for you, but I won't say it. As soon as Abu Talib passed away, as soon as he died, Rasulullah ﷺ said, I will beg Allah to forgive him. I will beg Allah to forgive him until I'm prohibited from doing so. At that moment, Rasulullah ﷺ said, what? I'm going to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him. This is when this verse was revealed. When this verse was revealed, مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ, that it does not befit the Prophet, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, or those who believe, أَن يَسْتَغْفِرُوا لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ, that they seek forgiveness for the mushrikeen. بعد أن تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم, when it becomes apparent that they are from the fire of hell, or dwellers of hell. Now, at that point, there was a lot of confusion. The Sahaba, they were under the impression that it was okay to do this. Just as Rasulullah ﷺ was doing for Abu Talib, we find that Ibrahim ﷺ asked Allah to forgive his father on many occasions. رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ سَأَسْتَغْفِرُ لَكَ رَبِّي, in Surah Maryam. In many places, Ibrahim tells his father, I'm going to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you. So now, the Sahaba are wondering, wait, we don't understand. The next ayah, right after ayah 113 of Surah Bara'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ اسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا أَن مَّوْعِدَةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ, that the only reason Ibrahim ﷺ was seeking forgiveness for his father was because of the promise that he made for his father. فَلَمَّا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَنَّهُ عَدُوٌّ لِلَّهِ تَبَرَّأَ مِنْهُ. The Quran says as soon as he became aware that his father was an enemy of Allah, he said, I'm done. I will not make dua for him anymore. So now we understand the context and why this verse was revealed. The reason why مَا كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ, this verse was revealed, was to tell the Prophet ﷺ that although Abu Talib has left the world, you cannot make dua for the mushrikeen when they have left the world. Another thing we learn from this too is that it is okay to make dua for the mushrikeen while they're living. Without a doubt. Because this ayah says, and Imam Qurtubi says this, he says that this ayah tells us that it's permissible, totally permissible, to ask Allah to forgive mushrikeen. Why? Because when Rasulullah ﷺ was getting attacked during Uhud, what did Rasulullah ﷺ say? Allahumma gfir li qawmi. Oh Allah, forgive my nation. What does it mean when we ask Allah to forgive someone who's a mushrik? Oh Allah, give him tawfiq to become a Muslim. Give him the tawfiq to become a Muslim. But once this person has left the world on the deen other than Islam, then this ayah tells us that it's not permissible to make dua for them, for their forgiveness. One other thing we need to learn from this incident is we see the effect of two things. As Abu Talib was sitting there in the moments of his death, one of the most detrimental things on our lives and on our decisions that we make in this world is the company that we keep. The company that we keep has a huge effect on who we are. As Rasulullah ﷺ says in the hadith, Al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, that a person is on the religion of his friend. A person will be on the religion of his friend. In this hadith, we see the effect of having bad company. That he's in between kufr and iman. Every time Rasulullah ﷺ is saying, say la ilaha illallah, the bad company is having their effect. So especially for the youth, we need to be so careful about who we take as friends. Because al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi, a person will be on the religion of his friends. فَلْيَنْظُرْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ, that a person needs to be very careful who he befriends. The other thing we understand is what was the excuse? What was the excuse that Ibrahim gave, that Abu Talib gave, as why he could not say La ilaha illallah? Because he was concerned with what the Quraysh would say about him. This is the second lesson that we have in this story. Caring about what others think. Caring about what others think. If we live our lives trying to please everyone else, we'll live the most unhappy life you could ever live. It's impossible to please everyone, so don't try. Never try to please everyone. And only because he was trying to please those around him, only because he was worried what other people would say about him, he wasn't given the tawfiq to become a Muslim. How many of us let what others say or think about us determine what we're going to do? Are we going to salli right now even though it's time? Wait, what will people say about me? People we don't even know. People we'll never meet again in our life. But what will they say? This term, what will they say, what will they think, was what took him away from Iman. It's very important. What we as youth need to learn is that we have to be ourselves. We have to set our principles and we have to stick to those principles. We cannot be imma, as Rasulullah ﷺ says, that we determine who we are by the company we're in. Or we determine who we are by the fashions of this day and age. At this time the fashion is this, so I'll be like this. 6 months from now the fashion is different, so I'm someone different. No, we as Muslims have the sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ for the last 1400 years. And it never changes. Never changes. So we need to be proud about who we are. When we're proud about who we are, then we become leaders in society. But when we follow behind other people, always changing ourselves, scared to be who we are, then you'll never be a leader in society. Ever. Rasulullah ﷺ says in a beautiful hadith, and this is a very important hadith. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من التمس رضا الله بسخط الناس رضي الله عنه وأرضى الناس به وأرضى عنه الناس. That whoever seeks the pleasure of Allah in spite of people being upset with him, it doesn't matter. He's seeking the pleasure of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with him, and He'll cause the people to be pleased with him too. Because Allah is the controller of the hearts. Allah is the controller of the hearts. As Rasulullah ﷺ tells us in the hadith, that the heart of every person is in between the fingers of Rahman. He turns it however He wishes. So if you seek the pleasure of Allah despite what people say, Allah will be happy with you and Allah will make other people happy with you. But the hadith is not done. وَمَنْ الْتَمَسَ رِضَى النَّاسِ بِسَخَطِ اللَّهِ سَخَطَ اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ وَأَسْخَطَ النَّاسِ بِهِ. And whoever seeks the pleasure of people in the displeasure of Allah, Allah will be displeased with him, and Allah will cause everyone else to be displeased with him too. He loses everything. He loses everything. So the sha'n al-nuzul of this hadith, the reason for the revelation of this ayah, we find many examples. We find many things to learn. First and foremost, the company we keep. Had Abu Talib not had Abu Jahl around him, what would his situation be? And had he not worried about what people would say about him, what would his situation be? And then look at ourselves now. How much of what we do today and what we'll do tomorrow is all based on what people think about me? Think about our own selves. And he's worried that the Quraysh will say something bad when he leaves the world, so I can't accept. The other thing we see is this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a very deep passion inside of him. It was his ultimate goal and objective of his life to give da'wah to people. To tell people about La ilaha illallah. To call people to La ilaha illallah. He's using all of his efforts to save as many people from the fire of hell as he can. Entire effort is going out to this, day in and day out. All he's working for is bringing people to La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. No matter what happens to him, just say La ilaha illallah. How much are we giving da'wah to people? How much are we telling people about this kalima, La ilaha illallah? Maybe we've worked with someone for the last 5-6 years, but we never even told them once about La ilaha illallah. We never showed them one time what the Quran is. But this is what Rasulullah ﷺ lived for. This was all of his efforts. So in this story we see many examples and many things for us to take lesson from and to bring into our lives. The next thing we need to understand is now, as we see the background to this second verse, On page 73, we see the second verse, which says, it is not for the Prophet ﷺ and those who believe to ask forgiveness for those who associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now we understand why this verse was revealed. So what Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu is saying, we understand. He's saying that this second verse abrogated the first verse. The question is, what is abrogation in Islam? What is abrogation in Islam? After the topic of bid'ah, which we discussed one time, one of the most important topics to discuss is nasikh and mansukh, abrogation in Islam. What is it and what does it mean? The Muslims for a long time were facing Baytul Maqdis when they were praying. They were praying towards Jerusalem. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the revelation to turn back to Mecca. This is abrogation. When one ayah comes and cancels another ayah. Now, when this happened, the Jews of the time, the Yahud, they had a lot of objections. They said, what is this? That Allah says one thing, and a few months later, a year later, something else? What's going on? قَالُوا إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُفْتِرٌ. They said, you're just making all of this up. So this was the objection from the kuffar at the time. This was the objection that if this is from Allah, then why is the order this week, and then 3 weeks later the order is this? Do we understand the objection? Do we understand what they're saying? The answer is very easy. The answer is very easy. See, when one of us goes to the doctor and we tell him we have something wrong with us, often the doctor will say to us, okay, I want you to take such and such medicine, and then come back to me after a week or two. After a week or two, you come back to him, and he says, okay, now, a week has passed, take this medicine now. After 2 or 3 weeks, come back to me and let me see. 2 or 3 weeks pass, situation getting a little better. He says, okay, finally, your treatment is do this thing. And then you get better. If we were to look at this in the same light that the Jews were looking at abrogation in Islam, if we were to look at it, we would say, what's wrong with the doctor? Did he change his mind? Why didn't he just prescribe what he prescribed in the 3rd week? Why did he have to say first week take this medicine, 2nd week take this medicine, 3rd week take this different medicine? But no, the doctor, he understands that this is part of the treatment. This is part of getting to the solution. I'm not changing it, I'm getting to the solution. Likewise, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the verses of, for example, alcohol. In the beginning, the verses were one thing. As time passed, the verses came on a different tone. And finally, the verses came in a different tone. Was there any changing of mind? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His hikmah and His wisdom gave the orders in this way. Not only that, we see abrogation all the time. We see that maybe a baby is born and a few days later it passes away. This is abrogation. Allah decided for something and then it changes. We see this daily, all the time. Someone is rich, all of a sudden he's poor. Allah changed the situation. All the time we see abrogation. And not only that, if we look in the Jewish tradition, we see much abrogation. We see it all throughout. When Adam ﷺ would have children, how would the children come? Twins. A boy and a girl. Whenever he would have the next set of children, how would they come? Twins. And then what would happen? One would marry the other would marry the other. Why is this?
Because there weren't any people.
There weren't any people. We need to populate this place, correct? And this is the whole story behind Habil and Kabil. Now, as time went on, was that allowed as the generations went on? No. This is in the Jewish tradition that this is how the earth was populated. This was allowed by Allah, that the brothers and sisters were marrying one another to populate the earth. But then as generations went on and the necessity went away, what happened? Allah changed the order. All throughout, we see this abrogation going on all throughout the Jewish tradition. So we need to understand that this isn't a reason for them to have any objection, because throughout the entire Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, what was he ordered to do with Ismail? Slaughter him, correct? But when he went to do it, what happened? It changed. So is there any reason for the Jews to have any objection to the abrogation that comes into the Quran? None whatsoever. Because the entire history, anyone, now let's take it to Christians. The Christian believes that Jesus abrogated the entire Old Testament. Correct? So anyone that believes in a book from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to understand and believe in abrogation. Even the atheist has to believe in abrogation, because we see it around us every day. Something is something one day, and the next day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to change that situation. So this is what abrogation is. Abrogation is one of the most important sciences when studying Quran and Hadith, of the utmost importance. Because we have to understand when one ayah came and when another ayah came or another hadith was said, in order to understand the history and understand the rulings that we have today. If someone doesn't understand abrogation, there is no way this person could be a scholar of deen, because he has no understanding of the time frame and when these things happened. So in hadith number 23, if we look back at it, we see Ibn Abbas now is telling us that the verse in Surah Isra, where Allah says, and وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا, he says that this other verse abrogated that verse. So I think now, inshallah, we can all understand the background of why the second verse was revealed, and also at the same time we can understand how this verse actually applied to the first verse, inshallah. Chapter 13. Babu Birrul Walid al-Mushrik. The chapter of showing kindness to one's polytheist father. In this hadith, عن أبيه سعيد بن أبي وقاص قال نزلت في 4 آيات. In this hadith, a Sahabi by the name of Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas is one of the Ashara Mubashara. He's one of the 10 Sahaba that were promised Jannah in one gathering. And he accepted Islam at the tender age of 16 years old. Now we spoke about Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas in the beginning of our halaqat. Does anyone remember the story with Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas? What happened?
Oh, he got killed?
Nope. It was a long time ago, so I figured. Inshallah, in this hadith we'll see the story. He says, قال نزلت في 4 آيات من كتاب الله. Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas in this hadith says, in my regard and because of my situation, 4 ayat were revealed because of my situation. He says, number 1, كانت أمي حلفت ألا تأكل ولا تشرب. Now do we remember? He says, my mother, she took an oath that she would not eat or drink. حتى أفارق محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم, until I give up the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does everyone remember the incident now? This was Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas rahimahullah. He was known for his righteousness to his mother. He was known that this was his quality, that he was very righteous to his mother. So when he accepted Islam, his mother knew that my son loves me very dearly, and I don't want him to follow this way. So I know what I'll do. She said she took an oath that she would not eat or drink until he gives up his religion. Now for him, this is the hardest thing. Because he's known all around the city for being someone who honors his mother to the utmost. فنزل الله عز وجل وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verse that if your parents try to force you to commit shirk with me, with that thing which you have no knowledge of, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, then never obey them, but be kind to them in this world. So when he told his mother that I will not give up my religion, then she said, I will not eat. But he felt bad that, am I doing the right thing? So he told Rasulullah ﷺ that this is what's going on. And Rasulullah ﷺ, the verse was revealed on Rasulullah ﷺ that no, he's doing the right thing, never obey. Always obey your parents. But when it comes to this level of shirk, never. So that was the first verse that was revealed about Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas rahimahullah ta'ala. وَالثَّانِيَةِ, and the second verse, إِنِّي كُنْتُ أَخَذْتُ سَيْفًا أَعْجَبَنِي. Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he was in the battlefield. And he says that I saw, after the war was over, a very nice sword. So the war was over and they won the war. So obviously when you win the war, you get all the spoils of war now. Everything there it's for the winning people, the winning army. So after the war was done, he saw a sword that he really liked, just laying there. So he grabs the sword and he goes to Rasulullah ﷺ. And he says to the Prophet ﷺ, can you please give this to me as a gift? So Rasulullah ﷺ said to him, no, put it back. He comes again because he really wants it. Can I please have this? Prophet ﷺ tells him, no, put it back. He comes again for the third time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a verse telling the Prophet ﷺ what is the order, what is the ruling regarding the spoils of war. So continuing with this, he says, فَنَزَلَ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنْفَالِ. The whole surah of Anfal, the first ayat, the first verses are discussing what should be done with the spoils of war. So in this incident, this was the reason why this ayah was revealed. Why? Because he wanted the sword and Rasulullah ﷺ told him no, but he insisted. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah telling everyone the rulings about the spoils of war. The third ayah, وَالثَّالِثَةِ إِنِّي مَرِضْتُ. He says that I got sick. Now this incident happened at the time of Hudaybiyah. During the time of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, we know that the Quraysh, they signed a treaty with the Muslims in Medina. There was a treaty, no more war. So now what happened is the Muslims were able to travel in between. And everyone's able to travel in between Mecca and Medina without any fear for war or being harmed. So Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu ta'ala an, he goes to Mecca. Him and some other Sahaba. But in Mecca he gets really sick. Really, really sick. Until the point where he thinks that he's going to die. Now when Rasulullah ﷺ comes to visit him, He asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, okay, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have a lot of money. I have a lot of wealth. And I only have one daughter who's already married. They're financially set. Can I give all of my money in sadaqah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, you can't. So then he says, Ya Rasulullah, can I give half of my wealth in sadaqah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, no, you can't. He says, can I give a third? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, you can give a third. وَالثُّلُثُ كَثِيرٌ. And even a third is too much. You shouldn't even give that much. What we learned at this incident were the rulings about leaving a will and giving money to people as we leave the world. If in the life of a person, you have full control over your money. If today you want to give all of your money in sadaqah, Bismillah, we encourage you. You can give all of the money in sadaqah if you like. But when one person enters into the state that he's close to death, now it becomes impermissible for this person to give more than 1/3 of his wealth away. Because now this wealth belongs to who? The heirs, exactly. Those who are surviving this person. And you cannot deprive those people of their right of the money. So you are only allowed to give wasiyah of 1/3. Now one important point to talk about as we get to this point is Rasulullah ﷺ says in the hadith that anyone that has wealth, there should not be 2 days that pass this person except that he has a will written and with him. It's of the utmost importance to have a will. Rasulullah ﷺ's teaching is that we have to have it so that the people after us know what to do with this wealth. Whether it be written or by word, but it has to be already set up. So that's what happened in this incident. In the third one, he says, إِنِّي مَرِضْتُ فَأَتَانِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَقُلْتُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Rasulullah ﷺ came to me while I was sick, so I said, O Messenger of Allah, إِنِّي أُرِيدُ أَنْ أَقْسِمَ مَالِي. He says, I want to give out all of my wealth. فَأُوصِي بِالنِّفْسِ. So, can I give all of half of it? فَقَالَ لَا. فَقُلْتُ الثُّلُث. He says, can I give 1/3 of my wealth? فَسَكَتَ فَكَانَ الثُّلُث بَعْدَهُ جَائِزًا. After he said thuluth, he stayed quiet, and after that it was permissible to give 1/3 of the wealth in sadaqah. The fourth ayah, the fourth verse that was revealed about Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. Inni sharibtu khamr. He says that one day I was drinking alcohol. Ma'a qawmin. With some people from Ansar, min al-Ansar. فَضَرَبَ رَجُلًا مِنْهُمْ أَنْفِي بِلَحْيِ جَمَلٍ. He says that everyone was kind of intoxicated. So one of the brothers in the gathering, he hit me in the nose with the jawbone of a camel. And he hurt his nose very bad. فَأَتَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. So then after his nose gets hurt, obviously everyone is not in their right senses. So he goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, this is what happened. After that, the verse of the prohibition of alcohol was revealed after this. He says, فَأَتَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ تَحْرِيمَ الْخَمْرِ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the verse saying that alcohol was forbidden. And hadith 25 inshaAllah. Hadith 25. No, actually inshaAllah, for today inshaAllah the program will be slightly different. For the last 15 minutes of halaqah, we have a guest